Welcome to the Pavea podcast, everybody. I'm Chris Sheeman, and I am the social media analyst here at Pavea. Happy you could be with us for yet another look at social media and tech news for the week. Coming up in just a moment, we'll talk to Dave Smith. He's a reporter for International Business Times, and we're going to talk about Google purchasing Frommer's. So that'll be coming up here in just a second. Before we get to that, though, I want to remind everybody, Pavea is your social media marketing, web design, and your SEO leaders. We do bring you this podcast to give businesses guidance for what to be looking for out there in the tech world, in the social media world, in the marketing world, all of that business kind of incorporated, especially with today's podcast. So if you're struggling at any level to find your way through the, of course, ever-changing landscape of online marketing, we are certainly here to help you. You can connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/Pavea. You can also find us on Pinterest at pinterest.com/PaveaWeb. And you can also email us anytime at info@pavea.com. You can also get more info on our website, paveya.com. We specialize in several industries, including professional real estate, hospitality, and retail. Okay, as always, the shameless self-promotion is over now, and a business transaction happened this week that's sure to impact those of you in the travel industries, hospitality industries. I'm talking, of course, of Google purchasing Frommer's. And here to help us understand what this means for your business is International Business Times reporter Dave Smith. Dave, thank you so much for sitting through that and being with us here this week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You know, if there's one thing of the many things that Google is pretty good about, Dave, it's making me aware of companies that I've never heard of before. You might have been able to tell in the opening. I don't even know if I got their name right, but they certainly did that.
Sounded right to me.
You know, the purchase of Frommer's this week, if I'm saying that right. So let's start there, Dave. Give us a little bit of background. Exactly what is Frommer's and why did Google want it?
Okay, so Frommer's, I'm actually kind of surprised because you've never heard of Frommer's before? Really?
Well, I wasn't born in 1860, so you know.
Well, I mean, it's a little more recent than that. I mean, Frommer's was actually started in the late 50s, actually. But Frommer's is probably one of the best travel guide series out there. You know, if you saw Eurotrip, if you ever saw that movie, the comedy movie came out maybe, I don't know, less than 10 years ago. Frommer was actually in it, Arthur Frommer, the founder.
Oh, I remember
it
now,
Dave. He had like a free
Dave.
cameo right at the end of the movie, yeah. But, you know, Frommer's is kind of like, you know, Suzeragat is kind of the big, you know, ratings and reviews site for basically restaurants. And Frommer's is just that for travel and just local businesses around the globe. And it's really the go-to guide. I mean, you know, my family, for instance, even, you know, would use Frommer's when we would go to, when we went to Italy one time and when we went to France another time. So Frommer's is something that kind of everybody uses. And so this is kind of a big deal for, you know, not just for the travel industry, but for consumers, you know, and how they access their ratings and reviews.
So I assume that Google already put time and effort into Google Places and also Google Local, and I think there's another one. So I'm curious about buying a fine, but let's face it, you know, a print-only kind of more outdated model like Frommer's. How does this benefit Google in their minds?
Well, I'll tell you this much, Chris. It's really not so much about just the print side of it. It's really more about the data that they're trying to collect. You know, as everyone knows, Google is all about data. They are a big data company. You know, they kind of have their hands in every pie that you could possibly imagine. But when you really think about it, what they're really doing is taking the data that's out there and doing something with it. So they see Frommer's, which doesn't have a huge online presence, and they see it as an opportunity to get their reviews, you know, which many travelers still use around the globe, to get them online, but to associate them with a brand that they want to use. And so this is really going to also help them leverage against Apple, you know, who's been trying to move into, you know, since they shunned Google from the next version of iOS. Google is trying to compete. You know, so last year they acquired Zagat. You know, this year they got Frommer's. So they're really trying to build their travel. Build their travel resume, really, with consumers. That when they think of how do I find local businesses, what do I find that's good around here, they want people to go to Google Maps, not the new Apple Maps application. They want people to use Zagat and Frommer's, and they want to use the values behind these brands of Frommer's and Zagat to really leverage their success in travel.
So I have an iPod Touch, which is basically it's an iPhone minus the phone part, or if you want to look at it another way, it's a smaller iPad, whatever you want to call it. Now mine came pre-installed with Google Places, and from what you're telling me, that's no longer the case.
Oh, well, I'm saying that, Google Maps, is that what you mean?
I guess the reason why I'm kind of curious about the deal is just because so many of my Apple products that I bought in the past just pre-installed. You know how they have the weather app installed. When I had this iPod Touch, when I first booted it up, it came with Google Places.
Yeah, well, don't expect many Google products to be on the front page of anything Apple iOS in the next generation, because
Gotcha.
This past year has really been about removing Google from the front page of Apple. People will still be able to use and download the Google applications, but they're really trying to take them off their dominance on the front page. That's why they got rid of the YouTube app, and they didn't re-sign a deal there. Google owns YouTube, obviously, and getting rid of Google Maps was probably the biggest part, because everybody uses their map system, and now that come September, October, everybody's going to be using Apple Maps instead of Google Maps on iOS. Google feels threatened by this, and so they need to kind of build up their maps. And one big part of one of the key reasons that people use Google Maps is to learn about local businesses and find ratings and reviews. And getting Frommer's is a huge deal. I mean, it's only $23 million to them, but it's a huge deal for them because they have a lot of value in their brand name, and that's all going to transfer online. So it's a huge win for Google in this one, and it's definitely going to help them in their future battles against Apple.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We had kind of wondered about that, so that's why you're here, Dave. Part of the deal does it give Google the option to get away or do away with the printed copy, and do you see that as a realistic possibility?
Well, it definitely gives them the option to. Google, like if the deal goes through as it was planned to, Google has complete. They can shut down the print side, or they can keep it running, or they can change it possibly. It seems like they'll probably keep it running. It definitely feels like they have no real reason to shut it down, but definitely expect them to transition more to digital. They're not going to suddenly just pull it from bookshelves, but it definitely, as digital, smartphones, tablets, and other kinds of devices become more ubiquitous, definitely expect Google to start just pulling away from the print side and really, spending less, putting less effort into the print side and really trying to pull those from the shelves and getting people more onto, use their devices. But I think Google really has to first kind of figure out how they're going to, really get the people that are not just on Android devices, but, other devices, iOS devices, BlackBerry, any Windows phone, how those users are going to be able to use these services. Because these are, Zagat and Frommer's are both really big companies, or they were at one time. And so they definitely want to use them to their advantage, but they still have yet to figure that out, I think.
That's the other thing I was going to bring up to you. Are jobs at stake here, or does it look like Google's going to act quickly? It kind of seems like they're going to sort of take their time from what you're saying.
Well, I think they'll take their time, but absolutely jobs are at stake. I would say that just because as they just did quite recently, I'm losing it right now, but they just bought another company, and they just slashed 4,000 jobs today from Motorola.
Right.
Now that the deal went through with Motorola, they just cut 4,000 jobs, and that's another one of these big companies that they have yet to do something with, but they're kind of planning. They're in their planning stages. I don't think anybody at Frommer's needs to worry right now. And the thing is that they rely on Frommer's for those quality reviews. So unlike Zagat, where it's a lot of just ratings, and then after that it's all user reviews. With Frommer's, it's all written by professional writers, and so I don't think that they're going to I don't think they need to worry. But I think that a lot on the print side of Frommers needs to worry, because I don't think that print is going to be around very much longer in general, but definitely not for Frommers now that they've been bought, or acquired, rather.
Right, and I had sort of made my snarky little joke at the beginning that I'd never heard of Frommers, didn't know if I was saying the name right. Obviously, I'm 30 years old, and I'm just getting to the point where I'm starting to have money to take vacations now, and that's just not a service that I personally would use, but I understand it's still got a big following out there, and we hope the best for everybody there. In all seriousness, but I want to finish up here just asking you, because a lot of our business, people in hotels, vacation rentals, hospitality, business industries. So I know there's a lot of people out there who are clients of ours listening who wonder, does this have an impact on them right now?
Well, one of the things that I always say is when there's a lot of competition going on, the user or the consumer always wins. And I think that this is true again here. Frommers isn't going anywhere. It's now, it now has a new parent, but like Frommers is, it's now just being used as a tool in a strategic battle between their company and Apple and Microsoft. It really is just between them and Apple, but there are some other players in the game that are going to be pretender rivals. But the fact is that Google is trying its hardest right now to compete with Apple. They are really out for them. Because Apple has the hardware and Google believes it has the software. So it's really been a great battle for the past, 5 years or so since the iPhone's been out. And it's going to get that much more dramatic, the battle between them, the two of them. And, now it's not just making products that compete with one another. It's using services and also buying services. Apple is using Yelp in iOS 6. So Google shoots back with Zagat and Frommers. It's just going to be a game of one-upsmanship. But the fact is that there are going to be more and more services incorporated into the things that people use every day, and all these services are going to be cheaper. And the fact is that the consumer, and almost every industry is going to win here. I mean, unless they work at Apple or Google, they really have nothing to worry about. Hotels, all sorts of services, for traveling around the globe. This is really just going to help them and really put the things that they do front and center. Because the fact is that the world is getting more digital. And so Google and Apple are wise to work with these companies to leverage their services and really put them on the two biggest platforms that everybody sees every day, iOS and Android. And, these companies are trying to, they're trying to help all these industries. Some people think that Apple and Google are evil because they're so big. And, it's borderline anti-competitive, but they're really, just competitive with each other. It's these two super companies, buying other companies, smaller companies, services to try to bring the best possible experience for the user, and the user is us, So, and that includes businesses. They're trying to put businesses front and center. So they have nothing to worry about. If anything, they should really be excited about this deal. This should be something that they really would look forward to, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, Dave, and I think you hit on the key point, and that's, digital. A few years ago, or several years ago, maybe I should be more specific, it was Apple and Microsoft. And now it's Apple and Google, and there's a reason for that, and that's digital. All right, Dave, I appreciate you being our guest this week to talk about this purchase. Great stuff. If people want to read more of your articles, more on this, tell them where they can go and find International Business Times.
Sure thing. Yeah, you can just go on www.ibtimes.com. That stands for International Business Times. That's ibtimes.com. And just search for me, Dave Smith.
All right, ibtimes.com. And Dave, thank you again so much, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Chris. I really appreciate you having me on.
Glad to do it. That was Dave Smith with International Business Times. That'll do it for another podcast. We'll post another podcast soon, so check back. And remember to visit us at Pavea.com. Thanks for listening, everybody.